Song Revolution with John Chisholm on the NRT Podcast Network.
Hey guys, John here, back with you for another round of Song Revolution. I hope that you're getting all you need to encourage and inspire yourself in your songwriting and to never give up on yourself. Certainly don't give up on God or on the audience that He's got for you and your music. I believe that if you have the desire to write great songs, that's Him reaching through you to reach the people He knows need your songs. I love the verse that says, God is at work in you to will and to do of His own good pleasure. He knows the good stuff He wants to bring through your life. So keep the faith, keep trying. That's been a huge secret to my success over these years. Just don't lay down and quit, right? Hang in there and never give up. Great songwriting requires a lot of effort as well as your talent. So keep listening to the show and checking out all the great resources and training that we offer over at our site at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com to step into your calling at the highest possible level. I believe you're called to this, and we're here to help. Well, I've got a great interview for you today with a great young artist and worship leader named Justin Warren. Justin's had over 1 million streams on his songs, and he's really coming on strong as a full-time artist. We had a great talk, and I know that you're going to enjoy getting to know Justin just a little today. But before we get there, let me recommend to you the fine people over at Music City Acoustics. When I wanted to treat my office and podcast studio last year, turned to these guys and they totally came through for me. I'm a DIY kind of guy, and I was actually tempted to try to build the acoustic panels myself, like go to Home Depot, buy the lumber and insulation and all that, but boy am I glad that I let the experts deal with it. I mean, it would have been a big mistake and cost me more in time and trouble and smashed fingers if I didn't call on them over at MusicCityAcoustics.com. They use only the highest quality materials, and their craftsmanship is top shelf. I wish you could see my studio. I mean, I call it the Chiz Pod. You'd love the look and the feel of these sound panels and the corner bass traps. They just make it sound like I'm in the closet, and it makes post-production on this show or any demos I do here sound incredible. They do music acoustical treatments for home studios, churches, businesses, or any location that needs to be treated. Now, they even do a free CAD drawing to show you what you might need if you just jump over to their site at MusicCityAcoustics.com and simply enter the dimensions of your space. And they got back to me in 24 hours, and it was all very affordable and the best thing I've done for my studio. Mention you heard about them here and say the Chiz Pod to get a nice deal on your first order. That's MusicCityAcoustics.com, another homegrown business right here in my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, home of country music and the greatest songwriting in the world here at Nashville Christian Songwriters. So my guest today is a young artist and worship leader from North Carolina named Justin Warren. Justin's making the rounds these days, opening for such artists as Sanctus Real, Rhett Walker, J.J. Weeks, Finding Favor, Mercy Me, Building 429, Natalie Grant, and many others. He releases his music on Radiate Records and has gotten over 1 million streams on his music so far, and that's not a shabby beginning. And there's so much more to come from this guy. I loved our talk and found Justin to be about as real as they come. He's the son of a preacher man, married for 15 years now, and the proud dad of 2 sons, and currently expecting their 3rd child. So Justin's pretty busy these days. He's managing a ministry, a whole lot of travel, and being a great husband and dad. But in this interview, Justin reveals a season in his young married life in which he almost walked away from it all, and how God restored his marriage and his own heart for God in a way that I don't think you want to miss. As always, I'd love for you to like and share these episodes out to all of your musician and worship leading friends, and even to people who just love hearing great podcasts. It's a great privilege to bring them to you and to encourage you each week to show up in the world as your best self and to be intentional about your calling to write songs to glorify God in the highest ways possible. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation with Radiant recording artist, million song streamer, worship leader, songwriter, my new best friend, Justin Warren. All right, Justin, good to have you in the house, man.
thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Yeah, I drove over from North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
How are things in the Carolinas these days?
Beautiful. The trees, all changing colors. It's
Sweet.
gorgeous.
It's that time of year, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So you're in and out of Nashville these days, making some music. Tell us all about that.
Man, I'm so thankful. It's been a lot of fun. I just recently signed with Ian Eskelin's label, Radiate.
Nice.
Yeah, we just released a song in September, our first single, All Things Well, which is great. But right now we're working on an EP to release in the new year. So yeah, we've been working hard in the studio and just excited about what God's doing.
Where's all this coming from, bro?
The songs?
Yeah, just this whole music thing. I mean, you grew up in the church. Dad was a pastor.
Yeah,
right?
my dad my dad was a pastor when I was young. He pastored most of my life as growing up, and I felt the first call I felt towards music and ministry was sixth grade at summer camp with I was going there with my church, and at that time I wanted to be a drummer in a praise band.
The old drummer in the praise band.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so my dad made a deal with me. He was like, "All right, I'll buy you a drum set if you do band in school." And so I did, and I ended up playing band from sixth grade all the way to graduating. I was a percussionist, and I didn't pick up a guitar until like in between my junior and senior year. My sister started taking lessons, and she'd come home from guitar lessons, but hey, let me see that. And then I just fell in love with it. I started going to lessons, started playing in my church, and next thing you know, I'm being asked to lead worship. And that a guy saw me leading worship at church, asked me to come be a lead singer of a local Christian band, and that kind of started this whole journey. It's funny because growing up, I hated being in front of people, I hated singing, I hated all that stuff. So God has a real great sense of humor.
He has a sense of humor, doesn't he? He kind of tricks us into stuff, doesn't he? So you grew up in church, but now here you are. I mean, stepping into a Christian music career that so many people would love to be doing. And so you were in the band, and then what happened from there?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So right out of high school, I started traveling in that band. My parents were very supportive. They're like, "You can pursue this. Just make sure you can take care of yourself."
Yeah.
And so I would work. I worked a full-time job and did that band. I'll never forget my full-time job. I got to where I was having to take so much time off. They're like, "You got to decide music or this," and I'm like, "Music. I'll see you later."
Yeah.
And so then that turned into just doing odd jobs. I've led worship at churches. It's been a long journey. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. God's taught me a lot of things. He's been
okay. Now, you can't
incredibly
throw
gracious.
that. You can't throw that out without talking about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
What's the biggest mistake?
Yeah, there was a season early on in my life where I got married really young. I was 20 when I got married. I was pursuing this music thing, and I wanted to walk away from my calling, my marriage, and everything. It was a mess. I really call it kind of like a prodigal son moment in my life. And
what caused that? Was there
That's a great question.
Anything that triggered it, or?
My own fault, just my own self. A lot of times I like to word it like it's like I became my own God. Like I was worshiping myself and trying to fulfill my own needs, and it just led me down a path that I'm thankful that God rescued me from.
Yeah, of course,
and restored me from, and restored my marriage, and He's been so gracious and good. And and from there, God just blessed me, and I've been traveling and like touring on my own and leading worship, like as a Christian artist, and playing concerts and tours and festivals for like the past 6 years now.
Wow.
Which has just been the grace of
Full
God.
time.
Yeah, it's been a grind, and I've just been willing to do whatever the Lord opened up in front of me, whether it was go lead a summer camp or go be on tour opening up for Sanctus Real, or I've done all sorts of stuff to make ends meet, and God's just met me and been so gracious and good and kind.
Seems like the marriage is surviving.
Oh,
and
man.
the kids.
We just celebrated 15 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. We got 2 boys. Our oldest is Luke. He's 12. Our youngest is Liam. He's 7. And we just found out not long ago we're pregnant with our 3rd.
Wow,
so,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Little gaps there, but
yeah,
that's
there were some gaps, and I honestly thought we were kind of done, but I always told my wife, if you ever want to try for a little girl, let me know. And
Do you know yet?
We're really close to, we're like a couple weeks from finding out.
Oh, you'll have to phone that in.
I will.
Let us know.
I will. I definitely will. So, yeah, she came to me one day and said, I think I want to try one more time for a little girl. I said, all right. And God bless us. And, yeah, so we're excited.
Wow, that's great. So what does it feel like to be you right now?
Exciting.
Real talk.
Yeah,
real talk.
exciting, nervous, thankful. Don't want to mess up the opportunities that God's put in front of me. Like, I want to make the most of them. I want to make much of Him in everything, in this new music we're making. Yeah, and it's all a little bit of a whirlwind, to be real honest. But I'm just like incredibly thankful. Like this opportunity I've been given is something that I've dreamed of for a long time. That I feel like I've taken some detours, and I've, the way that I would have written it out definitely isn't how God has written it. But I'm thankful because I know I am who I am today because of His grace and goodness, and just the journey that He's allowed me to walk through.
I think it'd be so easy to just kind of live into what seems to be the perfect Christian life. Grew up in a Christian home, pastor dad, married young, but then you hit that big speed bump, what you're calling your prodigal moment. And what do you think was the biggest lesson you learned from that?
Oh man, there's so many, and I feel like I'm still learning so many. Oh man, I want to answer this well because I would say that God. Sorry for the pause. You might have to edit this. There you go.
That's good. Pauses are good.
That God's grace is sufficient, and He's so patient and loving and kind, and in that there's hope for anybody for whatever they're walking through, and that's I want to carry that with me. Where I meet people who are going through all sorts of stuff, have walked through all sorts of stuff, and I just wanted to share that hope with them.
Yeah. What was the moment of restoration? I mean, how did that happen? The prodigal comes back to the father with open arms, but how did that work out with your family? And
I would say it was more of a process than like a moment. There wasn't like a movie moment where it was like, bing, it's just like, it was like daily walking through, okay, let's make this right. Let's get this right. Let's get right together. And it was just, I feel like it's been a journey. And now we can look back and man, it's just like, it's so sweet. Walking through that process was painful, as it could be. But I'm incredibly thankful. I would really just consider it more of a daily process of, fighting to do the right thing and make things right.
So how does your spiritual life look these days, having been through that and, some years back, I guess?
Yeah, several years back.
We don't ever talk about sin in the present.
Right.
It's like, it's
It's
like, I sinned a decade ago. And, we never say, well, gee, I'm dealing with a bunch of stuff right now. It's just hard for us Christians because we have this need to present perfectly, I think, sometimes. Yeah. And even in Christian music, it's just so prevalent, You don't really admit to present problems, but what does your spiritual life look like these days? And real talk on it.
Yeah.
Am I digging too deep?
No, Justin? Not at all. I love it. I would.
He's like, who is this old guy?
No, I absolutely
I came to his house and he's like trying to dig into my soul.
But. No, I would say that my walk with the Lord is as close as it's ever been, and I love spending time in His Word. One of the things that I got this idea totally from, Mark Batterson is a pastor and author. He's written some great books. He has a book called Play the Man. It's about being a father that I read. And it really encouraged me. And he set a goal, and I've tried to make this a goal in my own life to read through a Bible for each of his kids and like make notes through it where God speaks to you, and then give that to them as they like become young teenage boys. And so I've been doing that. I've done that for my oldest, and that's just been real sweet for me too. And it also challenges me, encourages me, and reminds me to dig into His Word.
It's good.
Because I have this like goal set. And also read books, I'm actually reading through Phil Wickham's, his new prayer book that he put out. That's been really cool.
I haven't read that yet.
Yeah, I think it just came out not too long ago. My wife got it for me, and it's been super sweet. I've enjoyed that. And I'm just trying to make that a part of my prayer life right now. So, yeah.
Excellent. So how did you get into writing songs, and what are some highlights for you? And I'll have you get a little closer to your mic there again. About that. That's all right. No.
I started writing when I picked up the guitar and started taking guitar lessons and started playing. And I would say a highlight in in that whole journey for me, I'll never forget this. I'm from Florida originally, and we were going down to visit family in Florida when I was 17, 18 years old, and my cousin and her youth group were going to a concert, and my parents told me and my sister that we were going with them, that we had to go, and I didn't want to go just because I was on vacation. I was like, I don't want to do this. Right, and so we go with her youth group to this concert, and there was an opening band, and then this guy named Chris Tomlin in the middle, and then the headliner, and I didn't really know who Chris Tomlin was at that point. I wasn't in college. I wasn't involved in the whole Passion thing. And I had just started hearing Indescribable being played on the radio. But I'll never forget, I was in that concert, and when he came out, he led that place in worship. Like, the atmosphere just totally changed. He, like, took us to the throne room of God. And it was incredible. And I walked out of there just praying, like, God, your anointing is on his life. Like, you can just feel it. And God, I would love for just like a touch of that, like an ounce of that. And that kind of started a whole wanting to write songs that just pointed people to Jesus. And, I'm doing this whole, I'm an artist now, and it's not so much the whole worship leading thing, but I just want to carry that with me everywhere I go, where these songs just point people to Jesus. And
that's an amazing prayer, though, and I remember praying that as a young guy too. There was a worship. We didn't call ourselves worship leaders back in that time, but there was this musician at a church in Tulsa when I went to a Bible school out there, and Doyle Tucker, and I don't know if he's with the Lord yet or not, but man, he was crazy talented on the piano, but he would listen to the sermon and then write a song spontaneously to just kind of encapsulate everything that was in that sermon. And he would sing it at the end of every service. Wow. And I walked up to him one day, and he was really tall, super tall, and skinny black guy. And I just said, Pastor Doyle, I don't know what that is you got, but I want some of it. Yeah. And he just grabbed me and hugged me and prayed, God, give John Chisholm whatever you want to give him.
That's amazing.
And that was, over 40 years ago, over 400 songs recorded, and years doing this. That's and it's amazing. Like, I think I have Doyle's prayer to thank for that, and some of that anointing, if you will, that was on him to be spontaneous. And songwriting, I think you have to kind of reach into a different part of your soul to make space, for the ideas to come. And so I'm just so thankful for Doyle and what he modeled for me that I like to model for people now.
That's
so
so
I think
cool.
You're going to get the chance to pass on what you saw in Chris Tomlin, and how many hundreds of thousands of people has Chris Tomlin inspired, or God inspired through Chris. So Chris, if you ever hear this, thank you, bro. Come on the show.
Yeah, amen.
Come on the show, Chris. You gotta come on the show.
On.
So come on. So when you do sit down and write, either by yourself or in co-writes, where's your happy place?
Yeah, I love. One of my favorite things to do is just writing with phenomenal songwriters. I love that. It's become one of the greatest joys of my life, is doing that. It just sharpens you and makes it so much better. And it makes the song better. And
lean into gifts you don't have.
Yeah, and being challenged, like even just working with Ian now, and I've taken him some songs, and he's like, "Yeah, that song's fine, but that's the problem. It's just fine.
It's fine." Yeah,
and really just challenging me. And I love that. It's been so great. But for me, songwriting ideas just come, and I think about them, jot them down on my phone, sing into my voicemail. I have a little studio set up at home that I'll sit down and try to hash things out.
Sweet.
And then bring ideas into the studio with Ian. And so it's just kind of I guess just my lifestyle, and just I love it, and I'm thankful to do it, and I love it when the Lord gives me something that just kind of inspires me and sends me chasing after an idea or a thought.
Well, if you had to pick like one theme, and don't say God's love, don't say worship, don't say encouragement, but cutting you off at the pass on those. If you had to choose like the theme of your life, or the thing that you feel you go back to time and again. I always go back to worship and healing. God did some wonderful restoration in my life, and I just go back to that place. I long to share that healing with people and help them to understand that they don't have to stay in confusion and darkness and brokenness, and whether it's addiction or just pain or whatever, depression, that they can come out of it. God does heal that stuff. I mean, it's a process and it's not always easy, but do you feel like you have a theme you come back to again and again?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely hope. Like Jesus told us in this world we'd have trouble, but to take heart because he's overcome the world. And I mentioned this earlier, just meeting so many people. I've people whose stories just blow my mind. And I just want to encourage them that there's hope because of who Jesus is and what he's done for us, and because he's already overcome the grave. And so, I always come back to that theme. At the end of the day, if someone comes to see me in a concert, I want them to walk away knowing there's hope, and his name's Jesus.
What are your concerts like? What do you talk about? And, do you have a full-length album? I know you've got an album coming out, an EP coming out in the first quarter here of 23, but what kind of material are you doing? What do you do in your concerts?
Yeah, we do a lot of originals. I share the stories and inspiration behind those. I have a song I wrote about my sweet family called Moments, and that's always a special part in the concert. But now also I will, in the concerts, I will tap into some moments of worship, and we'll sing some popular worship songs.
Right.
And so that's always a great time as well. So it's kind of a little bit of a mix of, me sharing original material and then hopefully leading people to the throne and just worshiping the Lord together.
Very cool. You're going to do All Things Well for us today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, why don't we take a minute and do that?
All right, that sounds great. Yeah. Looking out into the night sky, I'm amazed at what I see. A billion stars and all my wildest dreams hanging right in front of me. You're the God of endless possibility. You give grace upon grace, always showing up with big plans for me. Despite my mistakes, you do all things well. You do all things well. I give it all to you. You're proving you do all things well. You speak life into existence. You're the only one who could turn a world that's only ever known darkness into something good. You do all things well. You do all things well. I give it all to you. You're proving you do all things well. You do all things well. I give it all to you. You're proving you do all things well. You never wasted a moment. I praise you in the good times and the bad. You are the one that I hope in. My future is held in your hands. You never wasted a moment. I praise you in the good times and the bad. You are the one that I hope in. My future is held in your hands. You do all things well. You do all things well. I give it all to you. You've proven you do all things well. You do all things well. I give it all to you. You're proving you do anything perfect and faithful and true. Only you, and proving you to all things are well. You never wasted a moment. You do all things well.
All right, Justin, man, it's a great song.
Man, thank you.
I love the songs that you can either produce out, like your single is, great video, by the way,
Thank
or even just acoustically, it stands up. So did you write that yourself or with Ian?
So I started it on my own, and just a little backstory behind it. COVID affected so many in so many ways. I was out on the road with Sanctus Real, opening up for them. It was me, Jamie Kimmett, and then them on the Unstoppable God tour when COVID hit. And I was so excited. I was like, man, I felt like here I am. I'm like opening up for this band that I grew up listening to, and like I felt like God was kind of taking my career to this next level, and I was excited about the days ahead. And the next thing you know, like boom, everything's over, right? And not just that tour, but everything I had planned for the rest of the year just called and canceled. So, I know it's probably selfish to say, but it just bummed me out.
Sure.
Yeah, I was bummed about it. And then also in the middle of that season, one of my best friends in the whole world, he's played drums with me for like 7 years. His name's Josh. His dad was diagnosed with cancer, and we were praying. I believe in the power of prayer. We were praying so hard for his healing. We had people at shows praying, and just so many friends. And ultimately, God chose to heal him by taking him home, and we know he's in a better place. But that kind of it was heartbreaking. And then in the middle of this season, I would say I honestly probably struggled with some depression. Just a little bit of anger, just things not going as I had hoped or thought, and didn't know what God was up to.
Right.
And in the middle of that, my dad sent me this sermon on YouTube, and it was out of Mark 7. And there's 2 accounts of Jesus healing people. He heals a little girl who's filled with an unclean spirit, and then he heals a man who's deaf and can't speak. And immediately following those 2 healings, in Mark 7:37, it says the people were astonished beyond measure, saying, "He does all things well." And what caught me off guard was the preacher preaching the sermon. He said, well, of course these people would say that. They just witnessed Jesus do absolutely incredible things right in front of their eyes. Like, he does all things well. He says, but what about for those of us who are walking through seasons where we have all these questions? We don't know what God's up to. And that's where I was. Like, it hit me, right? That's where he's like, for those of us who are in those moments, we have to choose to believe that he does do all things well.
Right.
And it's like, ultimately, one day our faith will be made sight, and we'll be able to see in whole that he really does do all things well. And so that birthed this idea, this song. And originally the song was filled with like a lot of questions to God, and it ended with that tagline, "You do all things well." And I took it to Ian, and it was a really depressing song with that one little tagline. He's like, man, that's a great idea, but let's make this more encouraging. And he helped me really reshape it.
Yeah.
And which was going back to writing with great songwriters. And he turned it into something that it wasn't, and I'm thankful for that. But we really held on to that idea in the bridge. He never wastes a moment. We can praise him in the good times and the bad.
Yeah.
And choose to trust and believe that he does all things well.
That's so good. It's a great story and really highlights something I try to focus on with the songwriting clients I work with here at Nashville Christian Songwriters. Is you can write songs that are cathartic in nature, where you're just getting your feelings out. You're mad at God, you lost a loved one, or you didn't get the job, or you lost the relationship, or whatever it is, and you're just venting, lamenting. It's a legit thing, but very few people really want to hear it, and so, get a therapist, get a journal, and go do your thing, right? But when it comes to encouraging people, so many writers really start off with just kind of puking out all the bad stuff, and calling it, a song from God. And it's like, no, that's really not. That's your inner chatter. That's your own pain talking, and
wow.
it's valid.
Yep.
And we're not discounting that, but there has to be a way to turn it, And I've worked with clients, and in fact, I'll give a little shout out to Becky Nordquist. And Becky, dear friend, great worship leader, songwriter, and Becky has gone through 5 miscarriages and a stillbirth, and so,
sorry.
she would write about that, and I'd be like, Becky, where's the redemption in this? And I recognize, your pain and all that, but she wound up recording a song that was actually written for her called "Before We Said Hello," by Steve Seiler. Hey, Steve. And I'm doing a big shout out for Music for the Soul.org. Great people. But Steve heard her story and wrote this song for her. And it's a straight up lament. There's nothing Jesus-y, redemptive, and other than, okay, I'll see my babies in heaven kind of thing. But man, that's a tough constellation on earth. So all that to validate lament. It's got its place, but the majority of what we do in Christendom, for better or worse, is celebrate the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God. You do all things well, because those things rehearse that covenantal faithfulness. In Hebrew, it's hesed, which is that we translate it faithfulness and goodness and some other ways, but it is that God cannot ever cease to be faithful to his word, whatever that means, and your friend's dad going to heaven is just as much God's faithfulness and covenantal promise and goodness as a straight up healing or whatever. But we don't get all that. But when it comes to songwriting, I just 99% of the time try to do what Ian did with you and help you bring it around to the point where people don't go, ew, I don't want to hear that, I got enough of that going on. I want to hear something that's positive and uplifting and encouraging so that I can walk in my faith with God. So
what I love, that's awesome, by the way. And what I loved about it is I feel like this song made the journey that I did in my own spiritual life. Like, it started off in
that's a good point.
Depressing, bummed place.
Yeah.
But then where it ended is where God brought me to through all of that, through that season. And I love just being able to declare that. And for some people, that's for whatever season they might walk through, that's a hard thing to maybe say, but it's true that he does do all things well.
I'm not sure I've been very good at saying it in the hard times.
I'm with you there.
But God's faithful to
amen.
Be waiting for me.
Yeah.
And he's with me, through it all. But, I wrote a song recently called That's When the Love Begins. And, it's like when I bring my heart back to you, that's when the love begins. When I tell you the truth and bring my heart back to you, that's when the light breaks in. When I let it all go again, that's when the love begins. And I was kind of channeling Richard Marx from the 70s and 80s, I think, when I wrote it.
That sounds awesome.
A little bit of 80s thing going on. But my wife was like, the love never stops. It doesn't just begin when you get honest about stuff, but it's like, that's when it's real to me again.
Yeah.
And for me, Justin, it's like we have this concept of God. I say we think he's more like Casper the Friendly Ghost, that he kind of flits in and out, And we say, well, God really showed up, but it's only because we were more aware.
Come on, that's so good.
But God doesn't enter the building and exit the building when we sing songs,
That's such a great point. That's something as I've led worship, that I've tried to really encourage, because you'll hear people pray, God, would your spirit just come and fill this place? Well, it's like, there's not a square inch of all creation that he's not already there.
That's right.
So God, what we're really praying is, will you manifest yourself in such a real way, in a way we hadn't experienced, make it fresh and new.
Yeah, open our eyes, open our minds and hearts and our experience to him, because I just believe that he is, like you just said, he permeates creation and us, and he doesn't flit in and out of the building just because we sang another verse of Oceans or whatever, So, but those things really help us to get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I get that too.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of semantics there, but he is faithful, and he is always ever present and does not leave or forsake us, or he would cease to be God. He would cease to fulfill that covenant that he made. So and I'm so glad it's not dependent on me
Amen.
and my prodigal moments. And,
Yes.
because if you could wear out, 1 John 1:9, man, I would have done that a long time ago, right? If you could wear that out, but thank God you can't.
Yes.
Go look it up, you guys, if you don't know that verse. But it's like, you can't wear it out,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, it's just a pleasure to have you on the show. We wish you the best. Love your music. Love what you guys have done. And we look forward to the EP coming out. By the time this show comes out, the EP may be pretty close.
Awesome.
Do you have a release date yet?
We don't have an official release date yet. So
Yeah.
But we're very excited. And thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to sit down and talk with you.
All right. Justin Warren, wish you the best, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. God bless.
You as well.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the show today. I hope that you'll jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com and check out all the resources there to encourage you in your own songwriting. And if you like what we're doing, why not share this episode out on your socials? You can find the link in the show notes. We'll see you next time.